Congressman, thank you for joining us today. It's Memorial Day, but we want to talk about some of the hateful acts in this country in the last couple of weeks, actually. You've been very strong in going against them and what it says about our country right now.
Chris, you have to be strong. There's too much violence, too much hate. You know, Dr. King said on one occasion, hate is too heavy a burden to bear. Somehow, in some way, we got to lay down this burden. I don't know what has happened to America. It makes me sad. It makes me sometimes cry. I can never forget what happened in Charlottesville, what happened at the church in Charleston, and it spread like wildfire.
Do you think it's something new or it's just old hate? Is it people worried about change, ethnic change, immigration? What do you think stirred it up just now?
I think it's a combination of several things. Those of us in the political arena need to speak up and need to speak out and say this is not the American that we want. We want a better America. We want to bring people together because we're one people. We're one family. We all live in the same house, the American house, the world house. We're brothers and sisters, and we can do better, much better than the height of the Civil Rights Movement. We were taught the way of peace, the way of love. I was beaten, left bloody, left unconscious, but I never hated anyone and never will hate anyone. Those of us in the political arena need to preach the way of love, preach the way of peace, help create the beloved community, help bring people together as one people, as one family.
When you were back leading SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and you were leading one of the first, in fact, maybe the first lunchtime lunch counter sit-ins down in Nashville. And you had people throwing stuff on you. What did you see in their faces when they were trying to humiliate you for just being able to get a grilled cheese sandwich at a department store counter?
Well, I saw hate. I saw a sense that you don't belong here. You get back, you stay in your place. But a lot of those people change. And Nashville is a much better place. The South is a much better place today because people saw it and we all confronted it. But today it is spreading around America like wildfire and around the world.
Yeah, what do you make of the president?
I don't think this president has been helpful. I think he feels at home with what is going on. And when he reacted to what was happening in Charlottesville, there are good people on both sides, I cried. It's not the America that I dreamed for, the one that I was trying to help set right. It's not the America that we had during the days of President Kennedy and Lyndon Johnson. It's different.
Did you think there seemed to be a pattern, like we had Bill Clinton, who was pretty darn good, and then we had Obama.
Clinton was good.
And then Obama was even better.
Obama was good.
And it seemed like we were getting somewhere. What do you think happened to get people to vote for Trump? But knowing his attitudes about race, about division.
I'm not so sure, but somehow, in some way, his message arrested that movement toward goodness and openness. And people stopped respecting the worth and dignity of all of us.
What about the history of our country? When you look at it in a long stretch, going back to the Civil War, before the Civil War was slavery, 250 years of slavery. Then we had 100 years of Jim Crow. And then we had 50 years of whatever you call this, some improvement, certainly. I used to think that it was always a battle between a good army and a bad army. And it was never clear who was going to win. It was always going to be a battle. Is that the way it's going to be, that there's going to be this force of going backwards against the force of trying to make it better?
Well, I think we're going to make it better. I think the forces of making it better will succeed. You have to have faith. You have to believe. You have to have hope. And you cannot give up. And I will not give up. I will not become bitter. And as Americans, we must never, ever become bitter or hostile, and we must never, ever hate. If not, we will lose it. We cannot afford to lose our country, our democracy.
Let's get to motive. If you look at the times of when the whites in the South had defeated Reconstruction completely, and they had grabbed control of all political power, the Bourbons, the conservative Democrats, the lynchings back then, the worst of the hatred. What was that? Was that about? Was that a systematic effort to keep the black person down through fear, or was it fear of the black person? What was it about that led people to commit deadly acts?
Well, I think people have been taught that a certain segment of the population didn't belong in a certain place. So you had the sign saying white and colored.
Right.
White men, colored men, white women, colored women. But we got over that. And today in many parts of the South, people are living in peace and harmony with each other. They lay down the burden of race. And I think today it's a minority of people. But people come in and they try to teach people and urge people to go back. But we come too far, made too much progress, and we're not going back. We're going forward. And we need leaders now that are going to help point the way to the future.
Again, we have the president, and the president has used all kinds of language, code language, sometimes not code language. How do you get that to stop? I mean, how does anybody correct this president, besides defeating him and getting him out of office?
Well, we got to go out and vote, as you stated. We got to go out and vote like we never voted before. But in the meantime, good people must stand up, and speak out. My philosophy is very simple. When you see something that is not right, not fair, not just, do something. You cannot afford to be quiet.
Have you, in your years in Congress, going back to the 80s, have you ever come across the hate group threats? Did they come after you, these groups?
We have, since I've been in Congress, received calls, some messages, but for the most part, the people have been very good to me. Right. They've been very good to me. When I travel all across America, but all across the South, people come and say, thank you. Thank you for helping. Thank you for what you did for our country. Even on Capitol Hill, people who come to Capitol Hill and they see me, it doesn't matter whether they're black or Hispanic, white, Native American, they all say thank you. And sometimes people break down and cry. And I said, please don't cry. People said, I'm going to pass out. And once a lady came, and I said, please don't pass out. I'm not a doctor.
Well, you're such a man of history. I mean, I'll just say this to your face, but you know, I don't know anybody else who has been through the sit-ins and the Freedom Riders and being there on Edmund Pettus Bridge and get beaten up nearly to death, and to be there with Bobby Kennedy in Indianapolis that night when he had to talk about Dr. King just having been shot to an African-American audience, and you were there with him. You've been there, and you've seen, you are like a character out of the Bible. You've been through all this.
Well, I've seen unbelievable changes.
So you're optimistic?
I'm optimistic. I'm hopeful that we get through it. This will be behind us, and we will regain our country and our place in the world.
What would you say now to a person watching right now who's angry about ethnic change, angry about immigration, angry about black opportunity, a white person who is just profoundly lonely and miserable in their lives for some reason, and they are thinking of joining one of these hate groups because at least it's some sort of fraternity they'll be part of? That's what apparently happens. People.
Well, I would say, my brother, my sister, hate is not the way. The way of love is a much better way. love everybody. Never, ever hate. Love yourself. Love your fellow human being. We all are human. We must love each other.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.